Vi shouldn't remember the way her voice trembled that first night, but I do. It was past 9, and I was tightening the last bolt on the old fence between our houses. The boards had been leaning for weeks, and honestly, fixing it was just an excuse to keep busy, to keep from thinking too much. That's when I heard her laugh, low, tired, and softer than it should have been, as if she was holding it back. "Of all the things," she said from the other side, "you'd think this fence would have given up years ago." I turned, and there she was, Maria. Mid-40s, I guessed. The kind of woman who didn't need to say much to command the space she stood in. A navy sweater hugged her shoulders, sleeves rolled halfway up her arms. Her hair was pulled into one of those messy knots that looked accidental but wasn't. "Guess it didn't want to quit on us," I said, smiling before I could stop myself. Her eyes lingered on me a second too long, dark, careful, unreadable. Then she looked at the ground, shifting the glass of wine in her hand. "You didn't have to fix it. It's late." "I couldn't sleep anyway," I admitted, wiping my palms on my jeans. Silence stretched between us, filled only by the distant hum of a passing car. I thought she'd go back inside. Instead, she leaned her weight against the fence post, close enough that I caught the faintest trace of her perfume, something floral, edged with smoke. "Your girlfriend must love that you do this kind of thing," she said suddenly. I laughed, short, awkward. "Don't have one." Her eyebrows lifted, though she didn't look surprised. She took a slow sip of wine, her lips catching on the rim of the glass like she was considering something she shouldn't. It wasn't the words that caught me, it was the silence after them. She didn't fill it. She let it breathe, as if daring me to step closer, to say more. My hands tightened around the wrench I was still holding, though I wasn't doing anything with it. "You need help with anything inside?" I asked finally, hearing how thin my voice sounded. Her smile was faint, almost secretive. "I shouldn't." "But?" I asked before I could stop myself. "But there's a light that keeps flickering in the hallway. I keep telling myself I'll call someone." She paused, glancing toward her house, then back at me. "But since you're already here..." I followed her inside. The air in her living room felt warmer than outside, the smell of baked bread faint under the sharper scent of wine. The house was neat, too neat, like someone kept wiping away the evidence of living. She walked ahead of me, her steps measured, almost deliberate, as if she knew I was watching and wasn't sure if she wanted to stop me. We reached the hallway. A single bulb buzzed overhead, flickering, throwing her face in and out of shadow. I reached up to unscrew the cover, fingers brushing against the wall for balance. She stood close, too close, for no reason at all. "Thank you," she whispered, though I hadn't fixed anything yet. I glanced down, and her hand was resting on the edge of the table beside her, knuckles pale from gripping it too hard. Something in me wanted to ask why. Instead, I tightened the bulb, the light steadying with a soft click. "That's better," I said too quickly, stepping back. But she didn't move. Her eyes met mine, steady this time, unblinking. The glass in her hand trembled, just slightly. And then, so quietly I almost missed it, she said, "Don't tell him, just hold me." For a second, I thought I misheard her. The words hung between us like smoke. "Don't tell him, just hold me." My pulse spiked so hard I felt it in my throat. I opened my mouth, then closed it. She blinked once, slow, as if daring me to pretend she hadn't said it. I started, but the rest of the sentence never came. Her laugh broke the silence, though it wasn't really a laugh, more like a release of air she didn't want to be holding in. She set the half-empty wine glass down on the hallway table, pressing her fingertips into the wood. "Forget it," she whispered. "I've had too much. Ignore me." But I couldn't. I couldn't erase the way her voice cracked, the way she said don't tell him. Her husband. I'd seen him before, though not often. Older, suited, always on the phone, barely glancing at the woman beside him. He was away again, some conference, some trip, and maybe that's why her house smelled so quiet tonight. I should have left then. Any decent person would have. But instead, I found myself noticing things that had nothing to do with the light bulb. The faint redness at the corner of her eyes, the dent her wedding ring left on the side of her finger even though she wasn't wearing it, the way her sweater slipped slightly off her shoulder as she shifted. You don't have to explain, I said, surprising myself. She gave me a look then, a sharp one, like I'd stepped onto thin ice she hadn't meant to reveal. But it softened almost immediately. You're kind, she said, voice low, careful. Too kind. I wanted to ask her why me. Out of anyone, why place those words in my hands? But my throat stayed tight, and instead I just stood there, the flicker of the fixed light steady above us, everything else trembling. You remind me. She hesitated, chewing the inside of her cheek. No, never mind. I leaned in a fraction, not sure I meant to. Remind you of who? Her lips curved into something between a smile and a wince. Someone who used to look at me like I mattered. The words hit harder than I expected. They weren't about me, not really, but the way she said them made it feel like they were. I wanted to touch her then, just to prove I could steady her hand, but my fingers tightened instead around the wrench I still hadn't put down. She noticed. Her gaze flicked to it, then back to me. Slowly, deliberately, she reached out and rested her hand on my arm, warm through the sleeve of my shirt. You don't have to rush off, do you? Her touch was light, too light, yet it burned through me. My mouth opened, an answer hovering that I knew I shouldn't say. And still, it almost slipped out. Her hand was still on my arm. Not gripping, not demanding, just resting, as if she'd forgotten it was there. But I couldn't forget. Every muscle in me told me to take a step back, to make a joke, to defuse the moment. Instead, I stood frozen, staring at the faint shadow of her face in the soft hallway light. I should. My voice cracked. I cleared my throat. I should probably, go, she finished, not pulling her hand away. Her eyes searched mine. You don't want to. The certainty in her tone undid me. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed on the table. We both turned to look at it, screen glowing with a name I didn't recognize. She didn't reach for it. Didn't move at all. The buzzing stopped, leaving the air heavier than before. That was... I started. Doesn't matter. She cut in too quickly, shaking her head. She finally moved her hand from my arm, but only to brush back her hair. He never calls at this hour anyway. He. Her husband. The word I hadn't spoken since stepping into her house pressed between us now. I tried to swallow it down, but the taste stayed sharp. I wanted to ask 1,000 things. Why she wasn't wearing her ring. Why her eyes had been red earlier. Why me? But the questions caught in my throat, choking me. Instead, I said the safest thing I could manage. You shouldn't be alone in here. She laughed softly, though it sounded brittle. I've been alone in here for years. The way she said it, flat, stripped of pretense, made my chest tighten. She wasn't talking about tonight. My fingers twitched, restless, until I realized I was still clutching that stupid wrench. I set it down carefully on the hallway table, next to her abandoned glass of wine. My knuckles brushed against the stem, close enough to hers that she didn't move away this time. You don't understand, she said, almost to herself. Sometimes I just need someone to... She trailed off, biting her lip, eyes fixed on the steady light above. To what? I asked quietly. Her gaze dropped back to mine. To see me. The room shrank with those words. My chest felt too tight, my skin too hot. I should have walked out then, polite, distant, safe. But instead, I found myself leaning closer, not quite touching her, just breathing in the wine on her breath, the warmth radiating off her sweater. A sudden knock at the front door made us both flinch. We froze. She turned her head toward the sound, every part of her body tense, lips parted as if she might scream or laugh. The knock didn't come again. Whoever it was had already left. Silence swallowed us. Her eyes flicked back to mine. Close. Too close. Neither of us moved away. The silence after the knock was worse than the knock itself. It was the kind of silence that made your heartbeat sound too loud, that made you aware of the distance between breaths. Maria's hand twitched against the table, brushing mine for half a second before she pulled it back as though it burned. Her chest rose and fell unevenly, her gaze darting toward the door, then back to me. "You should go," she whispered finally. The words landed like a command, but her body betrayed her. She didn't step aside. Didn't clear the hallway. She stood right there, barring the way. "I will," I said. My throat was dry. "But not yet." Her lips parted at that, not in surprise exactly, but in recognition, like she'd known I was going to say it. I didn't mean for my voice to drop lower, but it did. "You don't talk like this with anyone else, do you?" Her eyes hardened for a beat, then softened. "You shouldn't ask me that." "Because I already know the answer?" She let out a sound, half a laugh, half a sigh, and suddenly leaned against the wall. Her hand slid up, pressing flat against the cool paint, like she needed it to steady herself. "You're too young to carry secrets that aren't yours." I took a step closer, just one, enough that I could see the faint freckles at the edge of her collarbone, the small scar by her wrist. Things you don't notice unless you're too close. "I don't care about that," I said. She turned her head, meeting my eyes with an intensity that made the floor tilt beneath me. "Don't say that. Don't make it sound so easy. It feels easy right now." Her jaw clenched. For a long moment she didn't speak, didn't move. The air between us pulsed. Then, so quietly it might have been a confession, she said, "You make me forget how lonely I am." The words slammed into me. Not because of what they meant, but because of how much she meant them. I should have answered with something careful. I should have stepped back. Instead, I whispered, "Then don't forget. Just let me." Her breath caught. She stared at me, searching my face for something, weakness, hesitation, regret. Whatever she was looking for, she didn't find it. And then, she reached for me. Her fingers brushed my shirt, hovering there, trembling, like she was holding herself back at the very last second. Neither of us moved. Either of us broke the stare. The space between her hand and my chest was barely an inch. But it might as well have been the edge of a cliff. "Tell me," she whispered, voice shaking. "What happens if I don't stop?" The question hung there, heavy, electric. And I couldn't breathe. Her question, "What happens if I don't stop?" still hung in the air when I heard myself whisper, "Then we don't stop." It was reckless, too bare, and the second it left me, her eyes widened. She pulled her hand back like I'd burned her, pressing it to her lips as if she could shove the words back into me. "You can't," she whispered. "You don't understand." I should have backed away. Instead, I took another step toward her, desperate to know what she meant. "Then explain it. Please." Her chest heaved once, twice. Finally, she shook her head and laughed under her breath, bitter and broken. "Of course you wouldn't remember. You were just a kid." The floor tilted beneath me. "What are you talking about?" Her eyes shone now, not with anger, but with something rawer, something she couldn't hold back anymore. When my mother died, she said quietly, your mom brought me food. I came here, to this house. I sat in your kitchen while your father fixed me tea, and you came downstairs in your pajamas. You couldn't have been more than 10. You offered me half of your toy car, said I could keep it until I wasn't sad anymore. The memory slammed back into me like a door thrown open. A small, fragile night. A woman crying softly at our table. Me, fidgeting with my favorite toy until I thought maybe giving it away would help. That was you? My voice cracked. She nodded once, slow, her lips trembling with the smallest smile. I never forgot that. I thought, maybe you had. I didn't know what to do with the ache swelling in my chest. Suddenly this wasn't just about tonight, or the flickering bulb, or her missing ring. It was about a thread I hadn't realized had been tying us together for years. Maria! I whispered, her name heavy on my tongue. She shook her head quickly, backing against the wall as if I'd said too much. That's why this is wrong. You're too close. You always were. My throat tightened. Or maybe that's why it makes sense. Her eyes flashed, fear, hope, maybe both. Don't say that. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed again on the table. This time, she grabbed it. A man's voice filled the hall, muffled but sharp through the speaker. Maria? I know you're there. Call me back. Her husband. She stared at the screen, then at me, hand shaking so badly I thought she might drop the phone. The voice cut off, leaving only the sound of our breathing. I reached for her wrist without thinking, steadying it. Her skin was ice cold. She didn't pull away. Instead, she whispered broken, You weren't supposed to remember me. And the silence after that felt like it would shatter us both. Her words, You weren't supposed to remember me, cut through me deeper than the knock, deeper than her husband's voice. I still had her wrist in my hand. She wasn't pulling away, but she wasn't leaning closer either. Just suspended there, like both of us were waiting for the other to decide. Why? I asked, my voice rough. Why would you want me to forget? Her lips trembled. She looked down, away from me, into some corner of the room she hadn't cleaned of memory. Because then this wouldn't feel like betrayal. It would just be a mistake. A moment. A mistake. The word lodged in my chest, sharp and final. I almost let go of her then. Almost walked out without another word. But something inside me rebelled, the same part that had handed her a toy car years ago, without knowing why, only that she looked like she needed it. I tightened my hold, just enough that she had to look back at me. Maybe it was always supposed to be more than a moment. Her eyes glistened, full now, the tears she'd been holding back catching in the light. Don't say that unless you mean it. Because once you do, I can't take it back. I swallowed hard, my heart racing so fast I thought I'd choke on it. I mean it. The silence that followed was unbearable, endless, until she finally let out a sob that wasn't loud but shook her whole body. She stepped forward, closing the inch between us, pressing her forehead to my chest like she'd been holding herself back for years. I wrapped my arms around her without thinking. It wasn't careful, it wasn't rehearsed, it was desperate, clumsy, but real. She clutched at my shirt like she might drown without it. For the first time, I understood, it wasn't about her husband, or the ring, or even the age between us. It was about two people who'd been carrying loneliness like an anchor, finally finding someone who saw it, named it, and refused to look away. I can't promise you anything, she whispered against me, her voice cracked raw. Not yet. Not with everything. I don't want to promise, I said, holding her tighter. I just want the truth. She pulled back then, just enough to meet my eyes. Her face was flushed, streaked with tears, her hair falling loose from the knot. "The truth is, I don't want to let you go." There it was. The word she hadn't dared to say. And I, stupidly, honestly, let out a broken laugh. Relief, pain, longing, all tangled in it. "Then don't," I whispered. "We didn't kiss. We didn't need to." The weight of her confession pressed against me like a vow, the warmth of her body saying everything her lips hadn't yet. For once, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like the start of something neither of us could take back. The house was quiet again, though it didn't feel like the same silence that had pressed on me when I first walked in. This one was softer, fragile, like the world was holding its breath for us. Maria still hadn't moved from my arms. When she finally did, it wasn't to step away. It was only enough to wipe at her eyes and shake her head with a tired smile. "I must look ridiculous," she whispered. I touched her hand lightly, steadying it before it could fall. "You look real. That's all I see." Her chest rose, her breath catching as if she wanted to argue. But she didn't. Maybe she was too tired to. Maybe she believed me, at least for tonight. The phone on the table was still there, screen dark, waiting for a call she wasn't ready to answer. She glanced at it once, then turned her gaze back to me. "You know this can't be simple," she said. "I don't need simple," I replied. The words came out quiet, but steady. "I just need you to stop pretending you don't matter. To him. To anyone. To me." Something in her face cracked then, not pain, exactly, but a release, as if no one had said that to her in years. She exhaled slowly, eyes softening. And in that moment, I realized something had shifted between us. Not just a secret shared in the dark, not just the thrill of crossing a line. It was deeper, the recognition that sometimes the people we least expect end up holding the missing pieces of us. She gave a small laugh, shaky but real. "You're too young to talk like that." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I've been waiting for the right person to say it to." She reached for my hand then, not trembling, not hesitant this time. Just sure. She laced her fingers with mine and squeezed. No grand promises. No declarations of forever. Just two people standing in the dim hallway, finally choosing not to look away. When I finally left her house that night, the air outside felt different, warmer, lighter, as if the world had shifted just slightly. And maybe it had. Because I knew one thing for certain: Maria wasn't just my neighbor anymore. She was the woman who had carried regret and loneliness like armor, and the one who, for reasons I still couldn't fully explain, had let me be the one to slip past it. And I wasn't the same either. Sometimes life doesn't give you neat beginnings or clean endings. Sometimes it just gives you one person who looks at you, really looks at you, and suddenly everything feels possible. And that's enough. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? Thought Balloon, what kind of stories would you like to hear next?